Good afternoon and welcome to session two of day two of FM Tech Week 2025. Marshall has over 20 years of facilities management experience, including several CMMS implementations, and has the scars to prove it. Marshall brings a practical perspective to CMMS implementation and is a past president of the Greater Phoenix chapter and is also an IFMA fellow. So, Marshall, going to hand over to you to illuminate us on the topic of CMMS.
Well, thank you, Ed. And I don't know how illuminated you'll be, but I wanted to thank everyone for making the time and wish everyone a good afternoon or good morning, depending on what part of the country you're from, or the world you're from. So happy to present this today. CMMS, even though it's foundational to everything we do, is still challenging. And some organizations still are struggling to even implement or adopt a CMMS system. So I've kind of amalgamated all my experiences over the years and put it in some kind of an organized format, and hope to help some folks out here today. So without further ado, we'll get going on the presentation. And hopefully that is sharing the presentation. So
We can see it.
all right, so things are looking up. So CMMS Demystified, and for those who may not know, CMMS is a computerized maintenance management system. I say CMMS system all the time, which I know is redundant, but it just seems to be a little odd to me to say CMMS. So tools, tactics, and transformation. So I'm going to go over, kind of soup to nuts, how to select a CMMS, why. Some things I've learned over the years to ease implementation and some key parts of that process. So I'll go over a little bit about me, why is CMMS, the selection process, workflow and processes, data, which is obviously the biggest reason perhaps why we have a CMMS at all, the implementation of the CMMS once you've selected one, and then I've kind of compiled some final thoughts as well. Ed introduced me, but I'm an industrial mechanic, millwright by trade, so I've actually turned some wrenches over the years. A 13-year Canadian Army veteran, 20 to 30 years, depending on my definition of the day, in facilities management or facilities related roles. Again, past president of the Phoenix chapter. Currently, I'm a senior facilities project manager with Bell Bank here in Arizona, and I'm also a principal at McFacman Innovations, an FM services consultancy. I've managed several portfolios over 1 million square feet. I've had multiple CMMS implementations over my career, and I've got some extensive experience. I was lucky along the way to have lots of experience in security operations and emergency planning as well. I've got a broad base of experience. I've worked in manufacturing, tech, electrical engineering, higher ed, and municipal government. So I've dipped my toes in a lot of water in the FM world over the years. So first, I wanted to address, why do you need a CMMS? And chances are, if you're an organization that's in the early adoption phases, you've already kind of established why you need a CMMS. I certainly have my reasons, but you want to establish that so you can formulate your justification or your messaging to the rest of your organization. When I think CMMS systems, I think confidence in PM systems, customer service. I think of asset histories. I think of resource planning, training, KPIs, and regulatory compliance. Those are the reasons that I, as a facilities manager, would go towards adoption or replacement, as it may, of a CMMS system. So obviously the why argument is the foundation for your justification. So when you as the leader in your department or you as the department have concluded, hey, we either need to replace the existing CMMS or get one period or a new one, your own kind of justification process will form that foundation for you going to the C-suite and kind of making your case. There's always budget implications, there's process, there's culture, there's all kinds of challenges. Even if your organization is amenable to your department adopting a CMMS, there's going to be some things you're going to have to talk through with the larger organization. So when I say confidence in PMs, I talk about PM checklists, I talk about schedules, and I talk about verification of completion. So particularly with new equipment, you want to be able to demonstrate that you've followed the PM plan in case there's any warranty issues, or if you have a new facility, you want to make sure that you've demonstrated that you've followed the PM plans. And then PMs obviously increase your useful equipment life, and provide more value to your organization. So PMs are fundamental, and a CMMS system can help organize those. You can put in checklists to make sure they're all done the same. You can verify completion, and you can attach all that stuff to equipment histories as well. Customer service is a big one, and as facilities management shifts from wrench turning to what I think is customer service, it's important. So we all get stopped, I'll get stopped in the hallway. Hey, my light's flickering, or hey, the toilet's plugged, or hey, it's too cold in my suite, or whatever that is. I don't know about the folks on the call, but by the time I've got back to my office, I've probably forgotten about that. And the same with all our techs. A month later, there's some angst or unhappiness amongst the occupants because that work didn't get done. So you're not imposing a bureaucracy on people. This is an extension of your memory, so you're making sure that this stuff gets done. Whether it's minor work or major work, you're cataloging all that. It'll help you prioritize it, and there's no excuses now in forgetting to get work done, because if you're reviewing open work orders, you're monitoring the status of those, why, kind of where they are and what's going on with those. Asset histories are important, and they're fundamental to any CMMS system. So all your assets, depending on how your organization defines assets, but you can catalog that. You can talk about information about the individual assets, so the cost, the date it was purchased, the vendor, the price. You can establish a repair history. This brand of boiler has a significantly higher rate of repairs or replacement than this brand of boiler, which may justify the extra cost in the future to buy brand B instead of brand A. So there's lots of reasons to have an asset history, and they're really fundamental to your CMMS. So whether it's a toilet that needs to be fixed, a light that needs to be changed, whatever, those all tie back to some kind of asset tree or asset catalog. Resource planning is important, and this is something that usually appeals to executives or the higher organization. You can demonstrate backlogs, which justifies, extra resources in the form of personnel. You can say, hey, we don't need electricians, but we need painters, or we need plumbers instead of, people who set up rooms or whatever. So your work order system can help you effectively plan resources, and you can catalog information by sites, by buildings, by the type of requests, or the minor requests. There's a school of thought that eventually your preventive maintenance should far outweigh your corrective maintenance. So your CMMS gives you that ability. Training. So if you get repeat, hey, we're always replacing the belts before we should on this fan unit. That may identify a training deficiency. So hey, the techs don't know how to install those types of belts, or maybe they're not using matched belts, or maybe they're not doing alignment properly. So those kinds of histories can identify training deficiencies. You can include standard time. So you may not be an organization culturally that says, hey, you have 45 to 60 minutes to do this, and anything else is bad. But you can identify, hey, this normally takes an hour. Why did it take 6 hours? Maybe it's a training issue. Maybe it's resources or whatever. And obviously you can develop checklists, and using checklists, make sure that everybody follows the same way of doing the work. KPIs help ensure alignment with your organization. So you find measurables that your CMMS system that can record or determine, and that demonstrates the alignment with your organizational goals. Regulatory compliance is a big one. So I know in the past I've had generator run times that need to be accounted or a certain PM. NFPA 70, excuse me, in the United States now dictates that you have to do electrical PM. So a CMMS system can help schedule that. It can help demonstrate that you're sticking to the PM that's required. So selecting the CMMS system, make sure that it provides the information that you need. Make sure that you understand the ease of use for customers, so people that are entering actual work orders. Make sure that there's an ease of use for the techs, ease of use for supervisors and managers. Training and support is included from the vendor that has the reporting capabilities that you need, and obviously there's a cost factor. Excuse me. The ease of use, particularly for the customers, leads to compliance. So if it's hard to enter a work order, so if a, excuse me, a person in the office finds it difficult to enter a work order, they're not going to enter a work order. So we did a study at one workplace that I had, and excuse me, goodness, only 60% of our work was requested through the work order system. So if you imagine 40% of our work by our technicians was off the books, which is not an ideal scenario. I want to talk a little bit about engaging your IT department. Now, some of us have a love-hate relationship with our IT departments. Some folks have a love relationship. Some people have not so much of a love relationship. Regardless, it's advisable, of course, to engage them early in the process. They are the SMEs, particularly when it comes to cybersecurity and network security. So you have to engage your IT folks, whether you want to or not. One mistake I have made is downplaying their additional workload on their department. And it's easy to say, hey, you know, this is cloud-based and the vendor looks after all of the troubleshooting and support. We all know that when a user goes to open up the work order system and it's not working right, they're going to call the IT help desk. They're not going to call the Acme work order company to get support on that. They're going to call the IT help desk. So regardless of the configuration and how you implement it, there will be some additional workload on your IT department. So don't kind of downplay that. So when it comes to evaluating potential CMMS systems, there's a number of considerations. So one is include stakeholders from all groups. You know, users, management, accounting is a great one to have in there. And anybody that could benefit from the reports, from the information generated, purchasing and procurement, if you're going to have, you know, a parts module or an inventory module, and just the different perspectives are helpful. Work through demos. All good CMMS systems offer demos, so get those folks, all those stakeholders in on the demos as well, even if they may not be literally doing that part, like entering a work order on the back end or closing them. It's good for them to see the process, and they'll see things and pick up things in the demos that you may not. And remember, demos are that. They're not the be-all, end-all. Some of them are quite orchestrated or simplistic, but it does give you a view of kind of how the system works. Understand the cost models. Some you buy a prescription, some are per license, some are per user, some are software as a service where you just pay a monthly charge. So it's important that there's with so many different cost models out there that you understand which cost models are available with the CMMS systems that you're evaluating. Understand the levels of training and support that are provided by the company, both what's included, what's optional, what's expected, if there's any, you know, volume kind of restrictions or, you know, they only accept so many trouble calls a month and then you have to pay extra. So it's important to go through and understand the levels. They're going to do one class for your company, two classes, annual classes, all those kinds of things. And understand as well, excuse me, upgrades to the software. Are those included? Are they not included? How often do you expect them? Is it annually? Is it every few years? Who pays for those upgrades? So make sure you understand those when you're working with the various companies that are trying to sell you a CMMS system. If you're able, and most companies I've worked with have been able to do this, look at live samples. So the demos are fine, but usually they can open up a live CMMS sample that's with another company that's online right now, and you can kind of go through without changing anything, obviously, but they can do a tour through their system and show you how their buildings are broke down, how their asset tree works, all those kinds of things. So look at some live samples if you can. And the last thing that's really important is to include the front end and the back end because they're distinct and separate for a reason. The back end is where the supervisors and the techs reside, where they're opening and closing work orders, adding notes, adding costs, adding labor, doing all those things. The front end is where the users or your tenants or occupants are doing all the work. And again, it has to be simple for them. If it's hard, they're not going to use it. So that's important to remember. So make sure you look at the front end completely. And again, that's why it's important to have those stakeholders participate in the process as well. So implementation, the processes are critical. And really when you've picked your CMMS, now the work is really starting. There's lots of decision trees, lots of things to discuss as a group, discuss as a team, get your facilities team together with the vendor that you've selected and walk through these scenarios, and I would say extensively. What happens when a work order is entered? You know, I've had where it auto assigns to individuals or trades. I've had it where it goes into a bucket and folks go in and snatch it out of the bucket. I've had it where it goes somewhere and then a supervisor assigns it. So really walk through what happens when a work order is entered and develop those processes, make sure everyone's on the same page, write the processes, and then set up a training standard that everyone will be trained on as they join the department. There's a lot of issues with closing and finalizing work orders. I've seen different organizations do it different ways. Sometimes if the work's done, it's just closed and goes away. Sometimes a supervisor wants to review it, make sure the labor was entered correctly, that any costs assigned were done correctly. They may want to do a follow-up with the customer to make sure that it was done properly, that they're happy with the work. So really walk through all of these steps, start to finish. We worked, the best job I did with this, we worked with a 5S or a Lean Six Sigma person, a Lean Six Sigma person, and we walked through all these processes extensively over and over and over again until we had what we felt worked. One thing that's valuable, most CMMS systems now allow you to publish to attach surveys when you close a work order. That's a great potential KPI, but if nothing else, it gives you a sense on how your staff is doing, whether they're happy with the process, whether they're happy with the work order system. And again, you can build that into goals, customer satisfaction number, and that kind of thing. Did they talk to the customer? Did they clean up their mess? Did they follow up and make sure it stayed fixed? All those kinds of things that are fundamental to our trades folks and our technicians. Did they do all those things? Breaks in the process are the weak spot. And I found no matter how good the CMMS system is or how good your process is, and when I say break, I mean if you had to order parts, or if you had to schedule it for a different day, or if you had to hand it off to another technician, or if you had to hand it off to a third party. Even with robust work order systems and communication systems, most times when I found problems with a work order, you can trace it back to where there was some kind of break in the process, a necessary break, but again, where there was a handoff, a delay or whatever, and then that's when the information seems to start dwindling and getting kind of frazzled. So be aware of those as a kind of a process danger flag. Those any kind of break in the system is something that you're going to have to kind of build extra processes around to make sure those get caught. So data, and that's the whole reason we're here this week. That's the whole reason we usually get CMMS systems is the data. So it's important to decide when you're implementing your CMMS and choosing your CMMS, what's the data that you need to have? So is it something that's required either for your department, for your budgetary reasons, for your C-suite, to align with your company goals, your department goals, or whatever? What's the information that you absolutely need to have? And make sure that you include that in the evaluation process, the purchasing process, the implementation process. There's nothing worse than going through all that. You fire it up, you start entering work orders, closing work orders, and somebody says, well, where's that report? And you find out, well, we can't actually generate that specific report. So it's something you need to have, information you need to have, and not just the information, but the timing or the volume or specific buildings or equipment. If there's needs to have, they need to be built into that whole process. Then what's nice to have, and there's stuff that you communicate either as a department leader at company meetings, maybe that may be of interest to other departments. There may be things interesting to department heads. Hey, your department has more, you know, hot cold calls than this department or this building has a significant amount of more problems in this realm than this building. Um, Interestingly, marketing and risk management. There's some other departments actually like some information that can come out of your CMMS system. So, hey, we've closed 2,000 work orders a year, or hey, we closed 2,000 work orders a year, and with our inventory module, we've actually saved 12% this year on parts and labor. So there's lots of nice to have information that your CMMS system can generate. Just make sure that they don't eclipse your need to have. I want to talk about migrating data. Most CMMS companies and vendors that I've worked with say, oh, yes, we can migrate the data. We'll move it all over from your old system. And frankly, I've never seen it worked as stated. And I believe the reason for that is there's no governing organization in the facilities world that has established common nomenclature and terminology for things. Your company may call it air handler 4. My company may call it AH4. Another company may call it something else. So when you go to migrate that data, the nomenclature is not the same, and you're going to have issues with that. So take it with a grain of salt. I'm not saying that no company can do it. I'm saying that none that I have encountered can do it, where they migrate flawlessly the data from your old work order system to your new system. I'd ask to see examples or talk to customers or whatever. I would just take that with a grain of salt. If they say, yeah, we'll migrate all your old data over to the new system, no problem. Consider your reporting, internal and external. What do you need for in the department? To your supervisors or department heads. What goes outside of the department to different executives or managers? Do they need it every Monday? Do they need it once a month? A lot of the CMMS systems now have a functionality where you can set those up to automatically email, President George the first of every month or the last of every month, or Superintendent, Sally the third Thursday of every month or something like that. So establish a delivery method and cadence and make sure it's just enough. Nobody likes being flooded even with good information, so make sure it's what they need. And again, standard terms and nomenclature. I'd love for the industry to develop a catalog of standard terms and nomenclature, but until there's some kind of governing body, I don't think that's going to happen. So just in your own company, establish, terms for things and stick to that throughout. Stick to it in your written processes, stick to it in your work orders, stick to it in your communications, internal and external. There's no right or wrong, but just establish standard terms and nomenclatures for equipment and buildings. Training is critical. So implementation, training, rollout. Training is critical for customers, users, and techs. Engage your marketing team. Have QR codes around, tabletop cards, messaging, things on the bulletin board. If you do little videos and stuff in your department meetings, It, just to create the hype, diffuse the notion that you're imposing more bureaucracy on people, to explain the reason. Hey, this is to make sure we provide a high level of customer service. We're not forgetting things. We're not missing things. We're increasing equipment life, and this is why we're doing this. Again, it has to be easy for customers. It has to be easy for technicians. Chances are the vendors have done a number of rollouts, so engage them for their ideas. They may even have some marketing materials or swag or whatever that can help with that. Excuse me, with your management group, set a tone. Again, the less compliance you have, the less reliable your data. So the best CMMS system in the world, back to my old example, if you're only doing 60% of your department's work through the work order system, that's a pretty big gap, and you're going to have a 40% deficiency in your data, regardless of quality. And then simultaneously roll out the reporting. There's nothing more kind of aggravating to everyone when you've pitched this CMMS system. Hey, we're going to have all these reports. You roll out the thing, you say, oh, well, it's going to be another 3 months before we get the reporting. Try to have that all scheduled and then orchestrated and choreographed. So when you roll out the CMMS system, the reports can start generating right away. Obviously, some may not have the data, until a month or, weeks or whatever the time schedule of the reports are, but have that reporting capability ready to go when you implement the CMMS system. So again, 2 or 3 decades of experience, some final thoughts. This is a bit of a hodgepodge. My big pet peeve when it comes to CMMS systems, they're a tool, they're a force multiplier. Do not let the tail wag the dog. What I mean by that, I've worked in organizations where I'll see us doing stuff and I'll say, why are we doing that? And they'll say, well, because the CMMS system requires us to do it. And I'm like, well, how does that help us? Well, I don't know, but the way the CMMS system works is we have to add this information or we have to do this. At that point, evaluate whether that CMMS system is actually helping you. It's there to help you. And if it's ruling you, then I'm not sure that it's a help. So be aware of that. When you adopt a CMMS system, and I've had this occasion numerous times in my career, it's counterintuitive to prove what you're not doing. But when it comes to budget and staffing and all those kinds of things, there is a value oftentimes, depending on your culture and your situation, to say, hey, this is our backlog. This is the stuff we're not getting done. This is our PM to corrective maintenance ratio, and they don't look good. And hopefully, depending on your situation, again, or your company's philosophy, that information will be valuable, but there's an inclination amongst us humans to try to cover up that bad information. And this is one instance where proving what's not getting done may be helpful. Back when I was a tech and a new facilities manager, there was some the CMMS vendor saying, hey, you can do this on your phone, was a big selling pitch. At that time, techs didn't like doing it on their phone. They like going back to their desk. So depending on your company's culture, that may or may not be a selling point. Just be aware of it. This is a change management exercise. Again, so communicate, ask questions. Know there's going to be fear and kind of angst and eye rolling and all kinds of different reactions, but it is a change management exercise, just like all the other ones that we do. Remember, garbage in, garbage out. So the information going into the system has to be good, or you're going to get bad information out. Any modern facilities organization needs this. It should not be considered a luxury by management. This is a big one for me. There's still facilities organizations out there that are begging for a CMMS system. And it's the onus is on us. We haven't done a good job teaching our worth as an organization or as a trade or as a profession. And I like to say that, the accounting department doesn't beg for Excel. We shouldn't have to beg for, a CMMS system, and they're both necessary to what we do. The processes I talked about need to be continually improving. You should be tweaking them all the time as you find gaps where things that aren't working. You should be always improving your processes. And again, this is about customer service. This is about not forgetting people's work orders. This is about when somebody says, well, the faucet's been dripping for 3 months and nobody's done anything, you can say, well, actually, we've been down there 3 times. This is what we found. That kind of thing. So showing what you're doing.
Well, there you go, Marshall. You nailed it. So
All right.
that was a whistle stop tour through CMMS. I think you gave us the down and dirty of many years implementing. So thank you very much for doing that. I'm certainly going to be using this the next time that I implement a CMMS system or I'm trying to explain. Until then, thanks, Marshall, and thank you everybody for joining us for this session on CMMS implementation. Thank you all.
Thank you all.